Hi, in this video I will give you an introduction to the framework module in the dotlegal platform. The framework module can be used to handle your controls within different frameworks, such as legal frameworks, could be GDPR, NIS2, or AI Act, and also for IT security standards such as ISO 27001 and SIS 18. The module can be used to handle your frameworks and get an overview of the different controls and your progress within those. But it can of course also be used to find common tasks that should be solved, but would give you progress within multiple frameworks. So if you work with multiple frameworks in your organization, I'm sure that the framework module would give a lot of value for you. Let's start and navigate to frameworks within the platform. Here I can see all my active frameworks up here in the list, and I can see all other frameworks mapped in the platform down here. Some of the framework I can access with my current plan, and some of the frameworks are locked because they are not included in my current plan. You need to buy another plan to unlock this framework. You can also create a custom framework, give it your own name, and start populating it with different controls. So if you like to do everything from scratch, this is the way to go. But let's have a look at one of our templates instead of making our own framework in this video. Here you can go by two different ways. You can select a framework down here, your shortcut to compliance success. You can select which frameworks you want to work with. You can also say create from template up here, and you'll get a complete overview of all accessible frameworks in the platform. You can see, because I have one active framework right now with a progress, I will already have some progress within all these frameworks down here, because there will be tasks that are present in both of the frameworks. So in this example, I will have a 42% coverage of my ISO. So I would only need to claim the last percentage in the gap to complete the ISO framework. Let's try to plan it. I will select a framework owner. This is the overall owner of the framework. And then I can navigate to the next step. Here will be presented for all the controls within the framework. So you can navigate through all controls and find the name and the description and so on for the control. So the control would be one-to-one with the specific standard. In this example, the ISO, you will have the specific controls within this framework listed here. Underneath each control, we have made a mapping of some standard tasks that can be solved and which serves as evidence for control completion. You can select if you want to load all the tasks together with the framework, then that can be done from this specific dialog. But you can also load an empty framework and then start to populate all the controls afterwards with the specific and mapped tasks. And that's what I would do in this example. When you have a control you don't want to plan, maybe it's not relevant for your organization, you can of course deselect it, and then you can state a reason of why do you want to, or why do we not work with this control, and then you can give a reason and write that, and in that way you can go through all the controls and select which ones you want to include in your framework. So let's just do so. You could also plan here the control date and the control coordinator. So the coordinator should be a user in the platform, and you can have different coordinators for each control. And of course, the deadline is if you don't want to do everything at once, but want to make an annual wheel with different dates, you have the possibility to select other dates here and say this one I would do in August and this one in October and so on. For the example, in this video, I'll just keep it like this, and then I will go down here and select create. Now the framework have been created and loaded with the selected controls. So I can see all the controls down here. I can see the category, the control coordinator we selected, the status of the control, and so on. In this example, you can of course also afterwards change the value. So everything is, and it's possible to change everything after planning. So you don't need to know everything when you plan a framework. You can always make changes afterwards. And now you can go to each control, select the control, and you will find an overview of this specific control. And this is where you will populate it with the tasks you handle in terms of documenting a specific control. So let's open information security risk treatment as an example. Here you can say add a task. Here you will select between all the planned tasks you already have in your platform. So in this concrete example, I would have a lot of controls from my SIS-18 framework, and I can select those and plan those. But I can also say add task on control template, and here you will find all the tasks that we in dotlegal says have something to do with this control. And of course you can select which of these you want to implement. So let's say I will take the review of the risk template and say create, and now the specific task for this control have been planned. You find the task here. You can see there will be a responsible who is the control coordinator, but of course you can change it if that makes sense. And then you can open the specific task. And this is where you will make or solve the specific task in terms of documentation. So this is where you will go through it and document how you have you are compliant with this specific area. And of course you have the possibility to work together, write together and say, please, I have a question, can you answer this? And maybe parallel leader can do that. So that way you can use it as what reminds of a project management system where you can notify other users and work together around solving a task. Each task comes with a description and some subtasks in terms of solving this specific task. I will recommend that you update this so it gets more specific for your organization. And to do so, you can navigate through the little icon up here to your annual wheel, where you will find the specific task we just planned. From here, this is the activity. You can select edit, and then you have the possibility to rename the task to something else. You can make your own description, so maybe you can make your own process. So let's do this, and you can of course format it. So if you want to make a header, you can do so, and so on. And then we can say let's do 1 and 2 and so on. And in this way you can form the description, but also down here the subtasks, so that it corresponds with your way to work with risk, for instance. This and so on. And so here you can create different tasks. You can create a description, and you can also plan the frequency. Let's say want to do this maybe 6 months instead. You can change the responsible user and the default assignees. Let's say I have 2 assignees on this one. You can set up if there's any standard relations, for instance, to other tasks or assets or legal entities. And then you can save the template, and based on my updates, now you can see the annual rule will update, but you will also see that when we navigate back to the framework, find the control down here, we find the task. Now this task is represented with the new template, but we just updated, and this way you have the possibility to make it your own or link to specific material either in the platform or outside the platform, and basically do it as easy as possible for your colleagues to work with these specific tasks, solve them, and in that way get progress within the specific task documentation, but also on the control, and finally also on the framework. Well, this was quite easy because I have one task on all my controls right now, so now I have 100% framework progress. But of course, in reality, I would plan task for each of these controls and delegate it to responsibles. And that way, when I have done it on multiple of my controls, I will not have the specific progress anymore, because it will evolve in terms of how many of the tasks underneath have been solved. But of course, when I solve a specific task, complete it, evaluate it, and then you will see that again the framework progress will raise based on my task solving. That's it. That's how the framework works. You can see in the overview now I have some progress in my ISO, and of course the tasks that we use as our evidence can link to multiple controls and frameworks. So you can always see that maybe one task will give you progress within multiple frameworks, and that's why when you work with the framework module, you also will have these gaps where you can see based on our current plan and our current annual reel, we do in all these things, and that means that we already have some progress in terms of other specific frameworks. Thank you.